Colleagues, just giving an overview of National Food Security and Nutrition survey that is being championed by the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. This project is being implemented, this survey is being implemented by the Human Sciences Research Council, pioneered by the Africa Institute of South Africa, and it is a national project. But as you can see, in South Africa, why are we focusing on this particular project or survey? South Africa has been reported to be food secure at the national level, but you realize that there have been reports of food insecurity at household level, reports of nutrition problems associated with obesity, stunting, wasting among children in particular, and this has been reported widely in South Africa. And on top of that, South Africa is experiencing a nutrition transition where there is exacerbated consumption of poor health diets, energy-dense diets that are cheap, and they predispose people, adults and children to non-communicable diseases like obesity, cardiovascular diseases, high blood pressure and so forth, diabetes as well. So in order for us to have a clear understanding, to generate information that is going to speak to the nation, speak to policymakers, speak to scientists, speak to the government, and to the populace in general, we decided that we conduct a national survey that looks at food security at the household level, but not only food security, but incorporating the nutrition aspects. And we are doing this under the framework of the South African Vulnerability Assessment Committee, the framework that uses the household, the food security continuum and the household economic approach. We are doing this in every province in order to have context-specific empirical evidence such that interventions that can be made to actually try and ameliorate challenges of food insecurity and nutrition can be targeted at the right place, targeted at the actual places where there is need, unlike taking a blanket approach at the provincial level. This has seen several studies that have been done and looked at food security issues and nutrition, but overall, most of these studies, they've tried to look at, they took a silo approach where they took nutrition aspects on its own. Then you have a survey that focuses entirely on nutrition aspects, maybe incorporating health components. Then we have had studies that have entirely looked at food security only, looking at food security indicators and so forth, but not tied or linked to how that influences nutrition at the individuals within the household. Interesting enough to say that this study is a maiden study. We have seen them, we appreciate the several studies that have tried to gather evidence. They've been very useful. For example, the general household surveys, the community childhood hunger project index. Yes, we've heard those. And they've tried to give an overview and they've been very useful in some aspects. But to move forward, to give a trajectory that speaks to food security and nutrition, we realized we needed a study that combines and try to link all the aspects of food security, the dimensions of food security and the health aspects, and give empirical evidence that the nation, that policymakers can use. And that being the case for now, just that's an overview of what we can say. And we are working with various stakeholders. We are working, trying to collaborate with institutions such as the University of Western Cape. We are working with also the agricultural departments within the respective districts. And we look forward to maximum support to achieve the intended goals. And this is going to give a baseline information, baseline evidence that is going to act as a benchmark for food security and nutrition aspects in South Africa. And South Africa will never be the same after this survey.
For me, what is intriguing and exciting about this whole project is about the data that we are about to harness from a data and analytics perspective. You realize, like you mentioned previously, this type of studies were done in silos. Now we have a chance to have very good nexus data whereby we can look at analytical gaps that exist. We can be able to look at relationships that are there between certain parameters that we'll be looking at. Previously, I think it's only 19 livelihoods that have been studied out of 119. So this data that we are about to harness is pure gold for this country. And we've had a chance to do a preliminary study just recently in Limpopo. We were able to test the digital technologies of data collection using this study. We have very current technologies that we've used. We were receiving data in real time, and we were able actually to produce the preliminary results very quickly. In addition to that, I think there is hardly data that is recent in this area of study. I think the recent study was the General Household Survey by Stats SA that was done in 2016, and you still find gaps in there that we have been able to cater for in this study that we are about to do. So it's going to enrich our databases, which will either be exclusive or even open access. I'm sure everybody is excited to look at the juicy data that we will be producing for this nation. So from a data and analytics perspective, I'm sure all people are really waiting to see these results, and they're very eager to work on this data, the stakeholders, the scholars in this area. This is going to be an exciting novel study for this country.
And I couldn't agree with you more. As an emergent researcher in the field, I almost got goosebumps when I saw the multidisciplinary approach to the study. I'll start with the problem. The kind of problems we find ourselves in South Africa today in the world are ones that do not call for working in silos.
Yeah.
So what you see with the study is that you have agriculture people, you have the scientists, you have the IT, and you have people from nutrition and diet to try and speak to a human rights issue. We all, according to the South African Constitution, have the right to eat. And what I experienced just thinking of my reflections from the pilot study is the diversified knowledge that we are going to get. We are going to get socio-economic aspects from this. Just through the AGA that you spoke about, Dr. Blessing, we will be able to understand that, okay, if it's a matter of like in Limpopo, people have land. so they have crops. But why are people hungry? Then the AGA allows us to zoom into the economics. What about poverty? Are these people working? And if they are working, if let's say one person, how many people do they have to feed? So those social aspects of the study is what I'm particularly looking forward to. But more and above that, I was also thinking that the uniqueness of the study is what makes it exciting, because food security and nutrition are linked, right? This will bridge now the differences between the sectors. Previously, health worked independently of the social and of the science, but we can no longer go that way. The other uniqueness that I want to speak to is currently we're in the time of COVID-19. This study, when it was conceptualized, had not spoken to COVID-19, but because COVID-19 was such a shock to all our systems, including access to food, the pricing of food, it did have an impact. And it will be interesting to see at a national level from the data analyzed to what extent that impact will be. So I think from my end, it has been really a privilege to work with people who have such rich knowledge in ITs and the data analysis, also such rich knowledge on the current food situation in South Africa, and to see how people working together will bring about the kind of information we need to affect policy. Because what this study does not promise is direct interventions like, oh, we'll bring them food parcels, we'll bring them seeds, we'll bring them money. No, we are bringing the stakeholders information to determine the right kind of planning to address the issue of hunger in South Africa.
Puleng, you have really nailed it, and I'm happy that in this project we are working with specialists like data specialists like Dr. Ngungu, as she has explained, trying to tease out the information of how linked are the household food security and the nutrition outcomes within a particular community are. So, coming back to the overall overview of this project, you would see that following the recommendations of the South Africa Vulnerability Assessment Committee, the framework that we took required that we focus on different livelihood zones that are across South Africa. So you would realize that in South Africa we have about 119 livelihood zones. So you would see that, but these livelihood zones, they are disproportionately scattered across South Africa. And we were going to sample across each livelihood zone and zero into each SAL within a particular district. Now, I want to come in to talk about the methodological overview, the methodological approach that we are going to use in this study. But before that, I want to emphasize the aspect, the uniqueness of this project, to that, as I said, the use of silo approach has been emphasized by Puleng, and you will see that most of these studies could not link how the household food security situation at the household level could be linked to the individuals within that particular household. So that gap that was existing in terms of information, in terms of empirical data, that data is going to make interventions easy within the household. And we actually have made a very good recommendation in terms of sample size, such that we will be able to have enough cases, enough sample size to actually find conclusions that speak to the smallest area layer, the SALs, rather than having issues or recommendations that are made at the provincial or district level. So I must emphasize that following the SAVAC framework of approach, the way we are implementing this project is that we are focusing on using the food security continuum, where we are going to classify the different categories of food insecurity in different provinces, in different districts and SALs. And that forms the quantitative aspects of our methodology, in which we are going to we are using the household questionnaire, which captures the aspects of the household demographics, of course, food productivity. We are looking at issues of food consumption and then individual nutrition aspects and the associated anthropometric measurements that we are going to do as nutrition outcomes that we will measure among children and adults. So that constitutes entirely a quantitative dimension of the research approach to this particular survey. We have also another dimension which uses the household economic approach, which is the qualitative dimension to the study. And we intend to gather the qualitative information regarding livelihood strategies that are used by communities. We want to know what are the livelihood strategies, what are the wealth categories in those communities, and how do they survive, what are the incomes, what do they eat. And such a qualitative dimension, it's a very good triangulation approach that buttresses the evidence that we get from the quantitative interviews that we're going to do within households. And to really help us, we have trained, and like Dr. Ngungu said, she gave some insights regarding the preliminary study that we did in Limpopo. Now, we did that study in order to test the instruments, to test our logistical arrangements, the feasibility of the rolling out of the survey to other provinces. And that was successfully done. And the results of that survey, the report is there, but we emphasize that the sample size was small, such that we could not give much inferences or conclusions that can be used to generalize to the entire province of Limpopo. We couldn't do that. So but it managed to give us an overview of how we are going to roll out the study. So we are looking at a study where we are going province by province. And in our data collection approach, the recruitment of our enumerators is province-based. We want to empower our enumerators. We want to give the chance to those unemployed graduates who are in those provinces to also have a chance to speak, to actually participate in that project. And they get some experience. And the training and the participation enhances their skills, and they feel part of the work that we are doing. And we are emphasizing this in order to actually say, across all provinces, as we come there, we will make use of the graduates that are there, those who are going to recruit and select and be part of this survey. So it's not only in the perspective of policymakers and so forth. We are saying every household member, every individual in South Africa must benefit from this project. Of course, the ultimate goal is to have evidence that is going to inform policy, evidence that is going to inform strategies, intervention strategies at the end. But as I speak right now, I think Dr. Ngungu is itching to say something regarding this, how we are going to, she must talk something about this data. You know, how the data is going to be given and taken, as it's taken from the field, how is it being collected and so forth as it goes to the server. She's the gatekeeper to that.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I must also go back to say that the training that we've had here has been very intense. I've seen us being able to groom our future researchers. I've seen a lot of them being interested in the technological aspect of data collection. Some have been asking a lot about data and analytics, and that's where the future is. And we were very privileged to be able to interact with the young population here, groom them into future careers because they have shown a lot of interest through this project. Of course, this data is going to be one of its kind with the current technologies. We're looking at using very recent machine learning technologies even to predict, like we were able to predict COVID. We know data, like I've said, there exists hardly no data of this kind.
Yeah.
And with the powerful technologies that we have, we can do a lot of work. We can do spatial modeling. We have very rich data from provincial level up to a small area layer, which is going to be able to make very good informed decisions for all interventions that this country can make to each and every SAR, actually.
And just speaking of the methodology and stakeholders to build on from that, it is not only young people who are unemployed that will benefit from this, but it's a matter of politics, the community. You know, in knowledge productions, there's always the debate of it is a selected few that determine what the knowledge will be. But with a study like this, through the AGA approach that you've been speaking about, you give the community members a voice. By involving them through the questioning process, you get to hear from the ground what their personal experiences are. And even though we cannot generalize statistical information from, you know, lived experience because of context differs from region to region, but it gives you an insightful picture to the quantitative data that was analyzed, and for you to and for people to make rather better decisions when looking at households. How can we go about helping these households? So I really appreciated that part of involving social constructivism of knowledge, right? Where knowledge between the researcher and the researched is a process where we were all getting into, and particularly in a country like South Africa, where we talk about democracy and citizenship and being involved in issues of state, that this is one way of doing it, and the project allows for that.
Sure. I appreciate very much your contributions, pulling particularly on the social components and empowering the communities. That is the focus. When a community is food secure, and when you have nutrition issues solved, you solve a lot of social issues, by the way, because sometimes you have these issues of food security being gendered on gender dimensions. If you take gender lens within a household, the intra-household dynamics that goes on in terms of food security, food access, and so forth. There are social embedded issues within that. So definitely that's very true. But I also want to come back to issues of methodology, because we want to make sure that we get valid data, we get reliable data that actually speak to what we intend to have. So apparently we have tried to make our sample size big. From our knowledge in South Africa, this is the only study with that large sample size. A sample size that goes to around 28,000 households. Yes, we may have to revise it downwards depending on what is going on in terms of resources, budget issues, and so forth. But we will not revise it below the threshold of 20,000 households across South Africa. And within that, we are targeting a potential size of about 84,000 individuals in South Africa. Now, that national sample size, how is it disaggregated according to the different provinces? It's because now we are looking at the different livelihood zones that we have and the sizes. Then the small area layers that are in the different livelihood zones, and we are saying in each small area layer we are going to sample 20 households from each small area layer, given the households, that the small area layers that we have selected. But that being the case, it means we want to improve on our validity. And that sample size is meant to actually enable us to generalize to the entire population of South Africa. And the sample size is actually big enough. So we may want to actually underscore that this study is also unique in that component. That sample size that we intend to reach and give insights from those provinces. And you know what we have been struggling with is the issue of sampling. We engaged our GIS unit, and we have been able to sample using the GIS. Of course, we will be doing ground truthing during data collection, of course, but our GIS experts have managed to do the remote sampling and identify the small area layers. And they further identify and mark the visiting points that the enumerators are going to visit. That component alone makes everything unbiased. We are not going to choose to use biased methods to choose the small area layers. No, this is a randomly selected sample size and units that are not subject to bias. And according to the training that have been done to our enumerators, they are not allowed to change the visiting points willy-nilly, like, they visit a visiting point, there's no one, then the enumerator wants to move to another household. Definitely that is not allowed. They will need to consult with the GIS experts and get a new visiting point. So we have tried by all means to eliminate all the biases. We have tried by all means to make our methodological approach so robust that we get the real data that's going to speak to the objectives of food security and nutrition in South Africa. And Dr. Ngungu is going to talk about the kish grids. She then brings a kish grids there where she say the enumerators, when they come into a household, maybe there are several households there, you have to select the household using a kish grid. She has been singing this message from day one of training up to this 5th day. And
but now they appreciate the science of the kish grid, and of course they are not supposed to change anything that has been pre-selected by our variable GIS team using very powerful technologies. The maps are very clear, and each visiting point, like Dr. Blessings has said, has been marked. So they will have to go to that visiting point, read the maps well, go in there, drill down, interview these people, including even the children. This is another aspect of this study which makes it also unique. And community entry has been done very well. They shouldn't experience any problem in the field. We've been in the field during the preliminary 2 weeks before, and we're still doing our community engagements. And the police stations have been contacted. It's going to be safe. The traditional authority leaders and all the leadership in Limpopo. And I think the reception is going to be very good, and there's no reason as to why they shouldn't get accepted in the households.
COVID-19, Puleng mentioned that, to say at the conception of this project, the COVID-19 was not there. The pandemic had not started. It came in when the project had been approved and so forth, and a lot of changes had to be made. But DALRRD showed a lot of support, a lot of flexibility, because COVID-19, if issues had not been budgeted for, and things were supposed to be changed, completely changed, the face of things. You could see here we are observing social distancing, We had to postpone field activities a number of times because of COVID-19 and so forth. But now we really are moving on, but it's now over. People have made flexible changes, and we are on the right path, despite all those differences.
And
Maybe
also
Pule, you want to say
the
something?
issue of COVID that you're saying, I really appreciate that even in the ethical considerations of the study, it was greatly thought out of, one, how to protect the researchers themselves, and two, the participants. So just reflecting on both the pilot and the training this week, is that it was overly emphasized, the matter of keeping the equipment, say the scale, the tapes that we will be using to measure people, clean and sanitize at all time. After every person, so you sanitize before and you sanitize after. Data collectors themselves will be safe. They will have gloves on, we will have masks on, we will be sanitizing. In the morning prior to going there, we will have checks to check if we don't have any of the symptoms and report them to our leaders. So in that aspect, there is a protection against harm to both us and those who are involved. I mean, in a space like this, the first thing you'd consider, what about COVID? You have nurses and doctors working in hospitals. Why most of them can go out and not have it is because they apply those things, and those very things have been provided to us. So we are very grateful with that aspect of COVID-19. And I'm also now thinking, Dr. Mason and Dr. Blessing, about the benefits of the study, to say, after all has been done, what does South Africa as a nation benefit? What does the economy benefit, the societal aspects and the health aspects? And I'll just I'll speak on the uniqueness of the study brought through the nutrition and the children. Through training, I saw the link for the first time between food and health, where the professor was explaining about, if you have children, if you see that children are malnourished, you'll just do a referrals. And he started explaining what happens to the body when we don't eat the right types of foods, where you get these little children, where they are mothers, and he says, what if you happen to get a big mother and a small child? That mother is also suffering from a health consequence. So for the kind of findings that the study will generate, it will speak to those issues of malnutrition and help also the people in the health sector to plan better for them and have the right interventions to address that.
It's really interesting, Puleng. You see, I wonder if you are still an emerging researcher or you are already a researcher who is experienced.
Crawling baby, I'm about to stand.
Yeah. You are already standing. Thank God to the experience that you are acquiring from projects such as these ones. This is one of the benefits that this project brings in taking into consideration research interns, students within projects, and they finish their studies within those projects. We have a number of students in there, and it actually gives students an impetus and some kind of support in terms of their research and field work for their data collection and their subsequent dissertation compilation.
Yes.
Yes, but you know, what fascinated me in this project was that the food security dimensions that this project touches. It had touched, because most of those studies that we have been mentioning were looking at one or two dimensions, but not all of them. So you look at the dimension like food availability, food access, food utilization, food stabilization. All these components, it's a cumbersome thing, but this study endeavors to produce evidence from this. And this has not been done before. What we want to assure the nation is that this study will produce information, this study is going to deliver, and this study will bring that information to the nation for use by various stakeholders. And we want to assure even the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development that the project is in safe hands. And we really assure everyone. And not only in South Africa, the success of this project is going to have also a big influence regionally. This has not been done in in any African countries yet. This project, this survey, when it is going to be successfully implemented in South Africa, it is going actually to be a benchmark for other studies of this nature in fellow African countries.
Yes.
And regionally, we will be, we have the SAVAC, you know, the SADC Vulnerability Assessment Committee and so forth. Each country has different vulnerability assessment committees. And once this is done, it is going to speak volume to other countries. And this is doable. And we can have such data. And those agencies with the regional oversights in terms of food security, like FAO, like the World Food Program, they will use the same data to actually have interventions that can be done. So it's not only going to be beneficial for South Africa, but regionally. Regionally, it's going to have a very big footprint.
Yeah, I also want to emphasize again that the HSRC, Human Sciences Research Council, is the implementing agency of this project, has got all the capabilities. We have done national surveys like the SANWINS survey, the SABSAM, the South African Social Attitude Survey, where we've implemented nationwide surveys from provincial level to SRLs, and it has been a huge success.
Yeah.
We won data awards for this country, so we ensure the nation that we're going to produce very good quality data.
Sure. HSRC, like Dr. Ngungu said, is a reputation for producing quality research outputs. And this is going to be a landmark research output for South Africa from HSRC, knowing very well that policy formulation from this end is going to be well informed by valid and reliable data towards solving these issues. You know, it's actually fascinating, or rather sad, to realize that most of the deaths that are occurring now in South Africa is largely, putting COVID-19 aside, it's largely because of the non-communicable diseases that are a result of poor nutrition. And the poor nutrition is a result of poor household food security. So you need, the link that we have always been talking about is that, that you can only address that when you understand the link between food security and nutrition. So we are really happy that there's funding has been provided for this, and we intend to roll out this survey across all the provinces as we move in South Africa, with the support of various departments and institutions, as well as stakeholders, wherever we go. Yeah.
Of course, to understand all this, information is very key. Information is very key. Because you need every time to back your results with data. For the implementers, they need information.
Yes, they need information. I'm happy to say, in our study, the COVID component, we had to do some adaptive research component to incorporate the adaptive research component in our study, because apparently the COVID-19 came in and it caused a lot of disruptions in terms of the food systems, the food supply chains. And you realize that most households were now they actually came into a situation where they were experiencing hunger. Why? Because there were a lot of people who could not now go to their routine works, or the employment opportunities and so forth. The lockdowns, the national lockdowns, people could not now get income, and particularly the urban impoverished households. Those were they were the hotspots. So you realize that COVID-19 almost degenerated into a food crisis, into a hunger crisis.
I mean, certainly, when you talk of that, I remember when the state of emergency was announced, I think 2 months before the issuing of those social grants, on the news you'd hear reports of, I would rather go to work with COVID than die of hunger at home. Reports like that make you realize the extent of hunger in South Africa. And with COVID, you also see that there was an increase in the prices of food. So when the price of food increases, it means that if someone was retrenched or someone lost their job because of COVID, that house is getting lesser of the food that they used to get previously. So the impact of COVID was a shock not only to the people, but it's like a tripling down effect. It's like impacts access to food, impacts price to food, availability, distribution. When we had that hard lockdown, just the distribution of food was hard. What about food that was exported across the borders? There was no food to export because the borders were closed. So it was critical that this study had to speak to that, because food distribution channels were also greatly impacted by COVID-19.
Very true, Pauline. Thank you for that. Disruptions of those food systems, like what you said,
yes,
compromised food availability, access, and so forth. And worse, people, you know, it also compromised, like you said, prices, the stability component, dimension of food security actually got affected because of that shock. And the price of healthy foods actually increased.
yes.
So it meant that households were now relying on poor health diets, where they are now consuming more energy-dense foods, cheap foods that can only make them survive. And by so doing, they were being predisposed to nutrition problems. And they don't happen now. In the near future, you have non-communicable diseases degenerating, and you will find the results coming later of poor of nutrition problems because of COVID now, because people were consuming poor diets. So we incorporated that, and that made us to say, let's have this component section that looks entirely on COVID and inform for other emerging pandemics later in life. What contingency plans do we have, and so forth. I think.
Thank you, fellow colleagues, senior colleagues. I respect the work you do. Dr. Masi, with the technologies are not easy, but the way that the training was structured was in such a way that I didn't know what RedCap was before. Now I know what it is. We know how to insert the data and to send the data. And Dr. Blessing too, for being involved in designing an instrument that is easily understandable to common people. We understand it, and I can only hope for the best for the study, for researchers, for scholars, and for the nation as well, with the results that will be yielded.
This project, under HSRC, we have principal investigators. Principal investigators, two of them, is Dr. Smelan, Dr. Stokozan Smelan, and Dr. Shingirai Mutanga. These are the two principal investigators, and among them we have principal investigators. Dr. Vuyo Mjimba, Dr. Wadia Paka, who is else?
Not forgetting Professor Charles Ogoro,
yes,
a wealth of experience
yes,
in this type of surveys,
yes,
for various projects across Africa and also abroad.
Yes, Professor Charles Ogoro, yes, and above them there is the executives that includes Professor Cheryl Hendricks. She's the overall leader, because the project lies within the Africa Institute of South Africa, where she is the executive director, and she happens to be the first overall oversight of that project. But she also belongs to the advisory, the advisory board, advisory committee, and under the PIs and the co-PIs, we have the scientific committees. We have yes, Professor Kangelani Zuma. Yes, he must be a co-PI. Yes, the chief statistician. Yes, such people with a wealth of experience in this service. There's no, you are guaranteed this thing is not going to fail. Such people have, people we have talked about, have a national footprint in terms of research expertise and research experience. And they've driven this thing to where it is now, where there's a lot of groundwork starting now, rolling out. And you can't forget such people. They've made things happen. And we really appreciate, because we work under them. They give us instructions, they give us responsibilities. But we want to appreciate, because they give us space to work, space to express this. So we appreciate that leadership. We appreciate their expertise, we appreciate their mentoring, and particularly their endeavor to make this project a success, because it has a national footprint. Yes, and the funders, we appreciate the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development.
You know, coming into the HSRC, I came from a background of the university where I was lecturing in the University of Johannesburg, and I really loved research and teaching it at a theoretical level, but I wanted to be engaged with the kind of research that impacts people directly, and not with the kind of work that we did that will just be shelved and not go out there, because there were really great works that the students produced, but it would never get out there. So I just liked to thank the HSRC, and particularly AISA, because I work within the division of AISA, for allowing me as a young scholar to work, and now not just work in the division, but also allowing me to work in a project of this nature, because this is a national study. And so I also appreciate that they didn't just put us out there. There were many levels of training from October, from a departmental level. Then, you know, the training that we had in Pretoria before the preliminary study, the training that we got here today, and the training that will still go on. It enhances our confidence as emerging researchers that we go out there knowing what we do. And also our seniors, I'd like to say, are very humble people for the type of qualifications that they have and how they take it down to the simplest way of understanding it is really humbling, but it also helps us grow. So I'd like to thank the HSRC for that, and also for having colleagues that are really supportive through this process, where through our lunch breaks, different people with different specialties will take you down the project, ask you, do you understand? And as you said, I'm not going to punish you. We want you to understand. I want you to make mistakes so you can learn, and that is great. It's always intimidating as a young person working with such qualified people at a high level, but we didn't feel that when we were here. We felt that we were growing. So if it wasn't for an institution that allows for that kind of space for young people to grow, and also to trust them, to put them in projects like this, is much appreciated.
Sure. Puleng, we in HSRC, we value collegiality. Collegiality is one important principle that takes you to the level of everyone, so that you are almost the same and you share ideas. So we are actually blessed to have you in this project more than you being blessed. You've made so much value in this project, and we hope it is going to be of future much help to you. It put you at a higher ground for furthering your career and development. We look forward to more students and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for your commitment. We have seen you and your colleagues working even through very late hours, trying to understand the Wood methodology and the concept of study. And I always get very excited when I see young people being eager to learn.
Yeah.
The HSRC is an institution that makes a difference, that makes a social difference.
Yeah.
We have been doing this for decades here in South Africa, in other African countries, and even abroad. And we will be in the communities to make a difference. So we want to ensure the communities that our presence will be there. We have gone through ethics training. Everybody has learned what they should do in the field, how to conduct themselves. We will respect the culture and the norms of the people here. And we are going to work together with the communities to make a difference through this exciting study that we are about to launch.
Wonderful, wonderful.